Welcome everyone to the first go-to session. This is the first of 4 sessions. We're holding these every Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Normally I like to hold them on Tuesdays, but I heard, and maybe I'm incorrect, but okay, next week is Labor Day, right? We have a long weekend. Um, College football starts, yay! And Monday's off for everybody. I heard that Tuesday is an off day too for students. Do students, is that true? Or is it only for campus students? So I was a little bit nervous about scheduling a go-to session on Tuesday night. So to make things less confusing, um, hosting a session on Tuesday of week one, Wednesday of week two, then going back. I just set them all for Wednesday night. So if that's a problem, I apologize. But at least you can remember it pretty easily. Okay, every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. Welcome to Creative Presentation. This is a month one course, I'm sure, for all of you. I want to go over some basic stuff first before we get into some concepts that you have read or will read in your textbook, as well as some overviews of what you need to do this week. Okay, let me actually blow this up. Okay, again, welcome to Creative Presentation. There's me. That's my that's my work photo. It looks more like a mug photo. That's the only photo I could find. Yeah, just some quick facts. I have 15 years teaching experience. So before coming to Full Sail, I taught at a variety of universities, community colleges, etc. The good thing is, and you'll find that just about all of your instructors, even if they're not instructors in your discipline, we tend to have pretty varied backgrounds. As a matter of fact, it's considered a positive to have those kinds of backgrounds here at Full Sail. So don't be surprised when you're a creative presentation teacher. I also teach English. Actually, I'm officially a member of the English department. It's just I also teach creative presentation. So you might see me again. English is a month 2 course if you're a campus student, and it's a month 4 course if you're an online student. By the way, my cursor has completely disappeared. We'll fix that in a second. I was going here. Hold it. Give me 1 second. Okay, now it's back. If people could in the chat, just let me know where you're typing from. I'm kind of curious to see how many of you are sort of in the area already. I'm guessing a lot of you are probably online students, so it's always nice to see where in the country you're living. And I'll go ahead and read it out loud. But yeah, where was I? Yeah, we have background. So, like, I've taught introduction to film at other universities. I'm not a music major or anything, but I did take piano lessons as a kid, and I still play as an adult. My real background is English, creative writing specifically. So, these areas really kind of dovetail nicely with the programs that are available at Full Sail, right? So chances are you'll always have an instructor who's kind of an expert in one of these areas, even though you might not think so because it's a creative presentation course or an English course. Joshua says Illinois, not the Chicago area. Okay, that's where I'm from, by the way, Chicago. It's been a long time since I've been back in that area. I haven't lived there for 20 years, but that's where I hail from. So Joshua, if you want to let me know where you are. He says Carbondale. Okay, Southern Illinois. Sure, sure, sure. I lived in Missouri for 6 years, so that's kind of yeah, Southern Illinois. That's 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 Cardinal country, which isn't my team. Matthew says he's from New York. Okay, cool. That's one of the exciting things, by the way, about online learning. And one of the things I'll say from the outset is that sometimes students find online learning a challenge, but I actually love it. I mean, I love the traditional classroom too, but I really like online teaching. And I would argue that you actually have more access to your instructor online if you take advantage of it than you would in a traditional classroom. Because here's what happens in the traditional classroom. Okay, yes, you walk in and it's great because the students are sitting right in front of you. So you can say things, you can tell who's paying attention, who isn't. You can make sure that concepts are getting through just based on students' expressions. And obviously, there are time for questions. But then when class ends, you don't hear from them, right? They don't email you. They don't really message you. Uh, because they can rely on the classroom setting. Online, you're sort of forced to reach out to your instructor, and some of you I've already spoken to. I've already gotten messages from some of you. You've probably noticed that I'm pretty quick on the turnaround. Officially, instructors, we have 24 hours to get back to you. I'm usually much faster. The only exception is if you send me something at night, and I usually check even at night, but sometimes if I'm busy, I might not, and so I might not answer you until the next day around noon, which is when I come into the office. But I'm usually pretty quick with the turnaround. Okay. Oh, by the way, that reminds me. Actually, let me go to the next slide. What we expect from students, and you can actually kind of see my notes there. um, yeah, we expect students to kind of channel that energy. Okay, you're all at Full Sail, hopefully because you're excited, because perhaps you've gone to a different sort of college. Maybe you didn't attend college, but you always felt maybe that school wasn't right for you. But Full Sail seemed a different kind of school, and it is. I've been here for over 2.5 years now. I love it. Um, I can say that if you work hard and you put your effort, I know things move fast, right? We have month-long courses and things really do kind of fly by. But if you can keep up with it and put your best effort and stay in contact with your instructors, yeah, I've seen lots of students succeed here. I mean, I've seen great things happen. So my main piece of advice is to channel that energy. Okay, use it as you work, not just in this class, but in your future classes. Always reach out when you have questions. I like these live sessions that I host once a week because it's sort of as a way for me to communicate with all of you in a live setting. Okay, but there really is a real person on the other end, so you should never feel like you're just taking a course and I don't know, that it's being taught by a robot or someone's rubber stamping your work with grades, but you're not really getting feedback. No, you'll always hear from me. If you have questions, I tend to give lots of feedback. So, I don't just like throw down a score and don't give any explanation. So, yeah, channel that energy and take advantage of all the tools you have, your instructor, just as you would at any normal school. Let's see. Waylon says he's from Tampa. Okay, that's kind of my neck of the woods. That's about an hour and 15 minutes to the west of Orlando. I've never made it out there yet, though. Okay, what students can expect from us? I already kind of went over that. I mean, you can expect a quick turnaround anytime you have questions. You can expect detailed feedback from us when assignment due dates have passed. We try to aim for a 72-hour turnaround time. Sometimes it might be a little bit longer, but we do try to get feedback to you quickly. And in my case, at least, it tends to be very detailed feedback. Okay, so basically, you can expect from us as instructors the same thing that you would expect at a traditional college. Let me quickly switch to the FSO platform. Okay, I'm actually going to close this to save my computer a little bit. This is the main activities page. Okay, so yours looks pretty much the same as this. Okay, I'm the instructor, but yours looks pretty darn similar. I just want to point out that anytime you need to send me a message, use this envelope icon at the top here. Okay, let me blow it up a little bit. You have the ability to leave comments under any activity. So, for example, let's say you read over the course overview. You might have decided, hey, I'm going to ask a question, and you put it under the comments, which is fine. The problem is comments get shuffled to this little notifications area, which is symbolized by this bell. But I get a notification literally for anything that you do. Like here, Joel Chavez uh, looked at the 1.2 reading activity, which is nothing more than telling you what chapters you're supposed to read from the textbook. Anytime you post to the discussion board, like Joshua's done here or Kyle has done, I get a notification. So anything you do, like if you sneeze, I get a notification. If you clear your throat, I get a notification. And so when you leave a comment under any specific activity, it gets sent here. I do get email alerts letting me know that you've left a comment for me, and I do try my best to go back and find them. But every so often, there's a comment that just falls through the cracks because I'm just not looking for it, or I don't know, I haven't checked my email, or maybe I deleted emails too quickly without seeing that there's a comment left for me. So the easiest way to get a response from me quickly is to use the envelope icon. Okay, you send me a direct message, then my little envelope lights up. I know there's a message and I can respond to you quickly. Let's see. Ron says he's from Cincinnati. I've been to Cincinnati, home of Skyline Chili. I lived in Ohio for 3 years. Yeah, I've jumped around. I've been all over the place. So from Chicago, lived in Alabama for a year, lived in Ohio for 3 years, lived in Missouri for 6 years, lived in Europe for 4 years. Now I'm in Florida. So yeah, I've bounced around. Okay, let's get back to our presentation. I'm going to get back to this, the issue of copyrighted materials, because it does have a connection with one of this week's assignments. So I just want to put out the reminder from the get-go that here at Full Sail, copyright issues are taken very, very seriously. I mean, they're taken seriously anywhere, but you're all heading into degree fields. most of you at least, where copyright issues are very real, right? Music production, recording arts, film. What else am I missing? Video game design. Uh, where you won't just be able to take things that aren't yours without giving credit for them. And so even though in creative presentation it's not as big of an aspect as maybe when you take English class in month 4, but it still is something that we're going to hammer home. And I'll return to this when we get to looking at your first major assignment that's due this Sunday. Okay, so I'll come back to that. Real quick note about college level writing standards. There's a document. I don't know if students get it or if we instructors see it, but there are certain writing goals that you should be able to hit for every class you take during your first 4 months. So creative presentation is a month 1 course. And at this stage, it's not that we don't care about writing, we do, but we expect, that you'll write in full sentences, that you'll follow standard rules like, initial capitalization when you begin a new sentence, typing capital I for the pronoun instead of lowercase. I'm going to go ahead and give an example of that in the chat. Okay. Oops, can't type. Not I. Right, so I just typed something in the chat because that's like text speak. So we expect you to avoid text speak, to follow standard rules of capitalization, to be able to write in complete sentences. Basically, we want you to write pretty clean, straightforward prose when you work on assignments, and that includes anything. Okay, that includes if you send me a message, that includes a post to a discussion board. As I always like to joke, this is college. Okay, this isn't a YouTube comment section. This isn't a message board for your favorite sports team's website. This isn't a Reddit thread. Okay, this is a university. So everything that you submit in writing needs to try to aim for the highest level of professionalism. Now that said, the stakes get raised with every course you take, and when you get to a month 4 course like English, then we'll look at much more specific things like comma usage or avoiding run-on sentences, some of the more esoteric stuff. Here we just want you. It's not that we don't care about those things, but we're much more interested in making sure that everybody's trying their best and actually trying to produce professional level writing. Okay, because it is an issue that I see a lot. Students carrying over bad habits from the internet into their work at Full Sail. You have 2 textbooks. One is called Resonate. The other is called Slideology. Your first readings come from Resonate, okay? And one thing that I'll try to say loudly this week and every week is to please stay on top of the textbook readings. Yes, I'll cover some of the key concepts from the reading every week in the go-to sessions, but this isn't a replacement for not doing the readings. And here's the thing. Every month I see it. Students sort of get a wake-up call about halfway through the course, because for week 1, week 2, it's not that the activities aren't challenging. They do have requirements. You do have to do a good job on them, but they're pretty low stakes in the sense that you can sort of get away completing tasks without necessarily having to show off that you've attended the go-to sessions or watched them after the fact or completed the textbook readings. But come around I'd say the end of week 2, and then carrying especially the week 3 or week 4, when we actually start building presentations, that's when the textbook material and the material I cover in these sessions becomes really important. And I often have to remind people in those weeks, hey, have you been keeping up with the readings? Have you either been attending or watching the go-to sessions? Because I can tell from the work that's coming in that I have my doubts. Okay, so one of the things I would recommend is, staying on top of the readings. They're not tremendously long. Actually, let me see. I forgot to have it open. Let me see if I can bring it up real quickly. Actually, I'll just get rid of Duarte Resonate. By the way, you should be able to get into your Safari account to access both books. If you're having problems with that, you need to call FSO support. I'm going to put the number for FSO support in the chat box, but I'll also say it out loud for people who are watching this after the fact. It's 877-437-6349. Okay, so any issues with textbooks, FSO support, it's the number 1 question they deal with, textbook issues. So give them a call. Don't email them. Don't fill out those request forms because that just takes longer. Call them directly. They should be able to help you quickly. But for Resonate, it's free online. So all you need to do is, like I typed in Duarte, that's the author's last name, Resonate, and boom, there's her book. Okay, so there is a workaround for this textbook, so you can get started on your reading so you don't have any excuses for not completing it. And it's pretty simple, right? If you go up here, you can access different chapters. And then kind of like a slideshow, you just click on the arrows to keep reading the pages. And you can see they're filled with visuals. The amount of text isn't that large. Okay, so I don't think it's asking too much to be able to go through the 4 or 5 chapters that are assigned every week. And listen, I'm not saying that you should skim it, because I think skimming can be dangerous, but I definitely would prefer that you're at least reading the chapters for gist. Okay, do you know what I mean by gist? That you can sort of not just scan or skim, but that you can kind of read through this stuff quickly and get the gist of what it's saying. I think that's probably the most important thing to do. But yeah, don't ignore the readings entirely. That's my point. Okay. There's a picture of the author. Nancy Duarte is a CEO. She's also an expert in communications. So yeah, she kind of knows what she's writing about. The book has its funny moments. There's some unique comparisons. There's some funny pictures. There's some sometimes enlightening metaphors, and sometimes some pretty outrageous ones. So it's I don't think it's always a dry textbook. And like I said, it's very multimedia. So I think the amount of reading in each chapter isn't that large. As an instructor, when I had to read through both books before I started teaching the class many months ago, it didn't take me terribly long to get through the chapters. Okay. Okay, let's start talking about some key concepts from the book. Okay, this is stuff that you sort of need to know for week 1. And let me begin, and I'm going to repeat this every week so people don't get lost. I'm going to say right now what we're working toward in this class. We are working toward a 3 to 5 minute presentation. Okay. Um, and I'll get to your discussion board assignment for this week in a little bit, but already on the board, you're discussing your experiences with public speaking, your experience giving presentations. Okay, so we want you to kind of explore what history you have with that already. In this class, you're going to be working toward a 3 to 5 minute presentation. It will be aimed at prospective employers. Okay. You're also going to imagine yourself 2 years in the future, because some of you might have experience, but maybe some of you don't. Okay, you just started your studies. So we're going to ask you to imagine that it's like 2018, you've just graduated from Full Sail. So hopefully you've done some things here, some projects, you've picked up some skills. Okay, so you're about to enter the job market for real. So your 3 to 5 minute presentation is going to be aimed at prospective employers. And it's sort of, well, no, not sort of, it's about you, right? Your skills, your accomplishments, what you can bring to the company, etc. The good news is it's a different kind of presentation. um, I know that on the board, a lot of people are talking about previous experiences in speech class or having to stand up before an audience, and how that can evoke, excuse me, nerves, anxiety. The good news is this presentation we're working toward is much different. Okay, you're not going to walk out in front of a live audience. It's not even going to occur in real time. You'll be able to create the presentation on your own. Carefully script and record your voiceover so that it's perfect, and it expresses exactly what you want it to say, and then you'll hand in that project. So hopefully that should relieve a little bit of the stress. I mean, it does have a lot in common with public speaking, and it definitely is an example of presentation making, but it's different. Okay, it's not occurring live, and it's not occurring in real time. But that's what we're working toward. Okay, actually, let me skip past that slide. Okay, on the discussion board, you're kind of already beginning to share your own past experiences with public speaking. If you could, using the chat, have you ever sat through a boring presentation? And don't say this one. So don't hurt my feelings and insult me. But in general, can you remember a bad presentation? Either one that you had to sit through in school, or maybe you had an assembly at school, or maybe you were on a job and you all had to show up for training. And if so, what made it boring? Like, what makes a bad presentation in your opinion? Any thoughts? As you do the textbook readings, you'll get more and more ideas about what makes presentations boring. But lots of times, students can kind of figure it out on their own as well. Like, what makes a presentation dull? What are things we should avoid? Any thoughts? Again, you can type in the chat, or if feeling brave and wish to raise your hand, there's that possibility too. And then I can unmute you and you can speak out loud. No ideas. I know you can't see each other's comments in the chat, but there's nothing coming through. Okay, Matthew says, in my opinion, it's the speaker. Okay, I'm curious to know about that. Are you talking about the speaker's delivery or the speaker being unprepared? Waylon says the speaker sounds dull and is very uninteresting. Okay, so there's an important part, right? We have to be able to relate to the speaker on some level. Um, and again, this is kind of why it works well for you, because it's the presentations we're working on don't occur in real time. You have the ability to script and record and plan to every minute detail how you want your spoken voiceover to go. So hopefully you can take care of all those things. Joshua says old trainings at Verizon were the worst. They brought nothing new, showed us slides on a projector, same information, expecting the same results. Okay, I'm curious what the slides entailed, because that's another aspect of it too, right? We can think of it in terms of like two halves. We have the speaker, her or his performance, right? And we can critique that. If the speaker doesn't have much energy, that can affect the room. If the speaker doesn't know how to move around, doesn't know how to keep eye contact with the audience, that can affect things. Obviously, with the presentations we're making, that's not really going to be an issue, because probably most of you aren't going to appear on camera. I'm trying to think if I've ever had a student really do that. I might have had a student or two briefly appear on camera just for a few seconds to say a few words, but no, the focus is never on them for the entire thing. Again, for these kind of presentations, I'd say that most students are sort of behind the scenes. Okay. Um, but yeah, there's a visual aspect as well. And one of the things that I think makes presentations dull, and people have made some good points about the speaker's role, is that too often presentations for people have just meant opening up PowerPoint, right? PowerPoint's the old standard, choosing a template, and just throwing words on slides. Putting text on slides, creating bullet point lists, and that's just not tremendously interesting. And yet so many people do that. That's like their default mode. It's like open PowerPoint, pick a template, throw words on slides. And what I'm going to be repeating all month is that there are other ways to create presentations. Okay. And one that I'm going to teach you starting now, and I'm going to repeat it every week, is that we can use simple, effective visuals to sort of capture our viewers' attention. And those sort of act as visual anchors for what's really important. And what's really important is what you have to say. Okay, that's sort of the focus. That's sort of the star. When people put words on slides or create bullet lists, either one of two problems occurs. A, if there's so much text on the slide, then why does the audience even need to be there? just give them a handout. Say, go ahead, read this, and we'll come back and talk about it. Right? Like, why do they need to be barraged by all those words on a slide? Or the words, there might not be that many words in the slides, but what words are there are basically functioning as cue cards for the speaker. Okay, it's the speaker who relies on them. The speaker can look up at the board or the screen, and see, oh, bullet point number one, I need to mention that. Bullet point number two, I need to mention that. And there are other strategies we can use to avoid that. Let me get caught up on what people are saying in the chat. Again, none of you can see it. Sierra says thousands of facts in a bland voice kills a presentation. Okay, yeah, good. A bland voice can kill things. I think when you mean thousands of facts, yeah, data dumping, right? Yeah, we're going to talk about that as well. Yeah, we're going to avoid that. Throughout the months, we're going to try to introduce techniques. Okay, there are ways that you can open up a presentation. There are ways you can close a presentation. It doesn't just have to be an endless spilling out of facts. Joshua says, those. Oh, I think he's redefining further explaining the Verizon things. Classic acronyms. They were so bad, I can't remember 3 years worth of them. Classic acronym. Ron says, one presentation is boring because of the monotone voice, sales pitch redundant, repeated himself. I felt like like she was talking to children, and that was a rep coming out trying to sell a phone system where I was working. I had my answer in the first 30 seconds. Yeah, I forget which chapter it's in. But yeah, your textbook talks about that as well. About how this is sort of the default mode. Not only do people just automatically open up presentation software and just throw words on slides, but sometimes people become sort of how should I put it, too you-centered. Like they come in with their sales pitch and their buzzwords, and they try to they deliver their hard sell, and it might come across as patronizing, or it might come across as if they're speaking to children. Um, and yeah, that's problematic. So okay, good examples, guys. But yeah, we kind of know intuitively what bad presentations look like. So one thing that I want to introduce now is what I just mentioned, that sometimes just finding the right image and pairing it with, it's not that text can never appear on a slide. I'm not trying to say that. But we don't have to go into default mode of either creating cue cards or overloading slides with so much text that the audience feels underwhelmed. And so let's look at some examples. Okay, let me just use a quotation. Here's one. Education is the kindling of a flame, not the filling of a vessel. Socrates. Okay? I like that line too, right? Because it says something important about education. That it's really about creating that spark, not just filling one's head with random facts or details. But okay, it's pretty effective. I mean, I could put this quotation up on the screen during a presentation, and people might read it and think that it's interesting. But look what happens if I pair it with the right visual. Okay, for example, here. Okay, we still get the Socrates quote, but the visual, I would argue, whether you like it or not, it's still, I think, it draws your attention more than just plain words on a slide. And here, context matters too, because here the idea of education is reinforced all the more, because clearly what's happening here is a sort of makeshift school that I'm guessing is in a pretty poor community. Or consider this next one. Anybody old enough to know this reference? What the image is capturing here? uh, I don't know if this movie is even famous anymore. I'm waiting to see if anybody catches the reference. Joshua says before me, but it's Bill and Ted. Okay, Ron says Bill and Ted. Yeah, okay. So some people still don't. I get nervous because sometimes my references can be really outdated. If you've seen the movie, I'm not going to explain the movie, but one of the running jokes is that these two kids here, one of whom is Keanu Reeves, who went on to pretty big fame, and the other guy whose name I can't even remember didn't go on to such fame. One of the running jokes is they're kind of slackers, stoners, right? They travel in time. But they're sort of so stupid that they don't even know Socrates' name. They keep calling him Socrates. Okay, but again, we pair this um, quotation with this image, and maybe it gets some giggles from the audience, right? Maybe the audience finds it charming. Be careful, humor can be awesome, but it can also be terrible. As I'm going to present in another slide, the presentation isn't really about you, okay? It's about your audience. So yeah, touches of humor can be great, but if you go overboard, you don't want to turn it into a stand-up comedy routine. You don't want to turn it into all about you. But maybe this kind of pairing would work well. Okay, maybe especially if it's kind of a serious presentation, it might lighten the mood. It might soften people's stances. And here's a more classical sort of image which actually features the Greek philosopher Socrates. Okay, but again, as much as possible, I try in my own presentations to pair kind of simple, effective visuals, limited text, and then the real focus is what I'm saying. Um, Obviously, if I were preparing this, for example, in advance for you to watch in your own time, I would carefully script everything that I say. I wouldn't be pausing or going or like I just did there. But I've delivered this presentation so many times that I'm not exactly winging it. But yeah, I'm not working from a script either. But if I wanted it to be more polished, absolutely, I would create a script. I would have a script for every slide, and I would make sure that it matched perfectly. And I do try to demonstrate those techniques as much as possible. Okay, moving on. Just a quick reminder that presentations do have a shape and a form, much like movies or stories or plays. Presentations should have a beginning, middle, and end, and there are specific techniques you can use. We'll talk about them in future weeks, but there are ways you can kick things off. Maybe I would begin with that Bill and Ted quotation if it were sort of important for setting the scene for my overall presentation. Because maybe it's about education, or maybe it's about how to create that spark in people. And maybe the Bill and Ted image makes people laugh and gets them in the mood to sort of listen to what I want to say. Okay, that would be an opening move. That would be an opening gesture. So realize that presentations also have a beginning, middle, and end, and there are various techniques we can use in each part to make our presentations more effective, and so they don't sound, like Sierra indicated, like just data dumping, just piling on information in slide after slide. Okay, President, we've already talked about this kind of effective versus ineffective. Oh, 4 types of audiences. I want you to identify which audience you've had the most experience with. Either if you've been in a speech class and had to deliver something that was akin to public speaking, or maybe you've actually given a presentation either at school or at work. What kind of audience have you most often encountered? You can go ahead and type in the chat. There's the friendly audience. This audience is wired in, right? They love their eye attention is on you. You can tell just by looking at them that they're engaged. They're listening, they're active, they're excited. Anybody have this kind of audience? Usually the answer is no. Apathetic, which is just a fancy way of saying meh, right? They're neither here nor there. They're not hostile, okay? They're not against you, but they're not exactly engaged either, okay? Apathetic. Uninformed. And I hope nobody's had this kind of audience. Yeah, the one I already mentioned, hostile. Where have your audiences fallen? For example, if you had to give a presentation or speech at work or at school, where does your audience most likely fall? I'm just going to wait a beat, because if I wait long enough, someone eventually responds. Joshua says apathetic. Matthew says apathetic for sure. Was this in school? I'm just curious. Yeah, apathetic seems to be the most common response. Ooh, Waylon says hostile. Okay, that's I feel bad for you. Here's some things to keep in mind, okay? If these happen in school settings, that's kind of the norm, right? Because what happens in speech class in high school or even in college? Nobody wants to be there. Everybody views this as a requirement. I'm not sure how much speech teachers go into effective presentation giving, but people just have to sit through often lots of bad presentations where the student is either staring down at their shoes or reading off a piece of paper. Often the presenters don't look very interested in being there, and it just becomes right. Nobody's really into it. But here's my point: don't take it personally. Or who was it? Waylon, who said his audience was hostile. Okay, never take it personally. I know I'm already seeing on the board comments about how presentations or public speaking make people feel stressed or nervous. I can't remember if anybody in this room is in that category. I can say that it gets better with time. Okay, I wish I could give you some sort of Zen trick to get over that. I wish I could give you the solution in 2 seconds. I can't. For me, I know it comes with just being comfortable in your own skin, because when you're comfortable in your own skin, it's not that you don't care, because that's a bad way to put it, but you don't let things get you down. So what happens when you give a presentation or a speech in school? You look out in that crowd, and as soon as you see that first face that looks bored, disinterested, right, that sort of sends you into a panic. I don't panic. I just I don't want to say I ignore it, but I don't make a big deal about it. Okay, when you become so comfortable in your own skin, you sort of, I don't know, you give yourself permission to not put it all on you. Okay, there are other people involved. Sure, we should never stop self-evaluating. If there's something about our presentation or something about our delivery or something that needs improvement, certainly we should work to improve those things. But when you know or you feel like you're doing a pretty solid job, but your audience or certain members of the audience are apathetic or even hostile, you just need to let that go. Because if you don't, then they bring you down. And again, this is what's awesome about this class, right? You're not going to have it occur in real time. So you're not going to have that audience member who throws you off your game. You actually control the game, because you're going to probably do everything behind the scenes, work on putting your presentation together, work on scripting what you have to say. And that should, I hope, lessen the anxiety. But just as a tip for the future, when you do have to speak in front of public, even if it's an informal setting, you'd be amazed. I think public speaking is either the number one or number two fear that exists out there. And it's not just in terms of walking out on a stage and being in front of a large group. I mean, some people don't even like to stand up in a meeting and speak. Some people, even when they're among friends, they don't like having to get up and maybe give a short couple words about a certain topic. Okay, but yeah, hopefully after this class, you can take what we're going to learn all month and be able to apply that in other settings. Let's see. Ron says apathetic. Sierra says apathetic, sometimes hostile. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty standard. Almost everybody. Again, I think it's the settings. There's a big difference between a certain kind of, and we'll get into your assignments in just a second. Actually, I'm going to race through these slides because I'm taking a little bit longer than I thought I would. But one of your activities is to actually look at professional presentations and analyze them. And the presentations you are going to look at are much more engaging. Okay, you're going to be watching skilled presenters, and you're also going to see an audience that's much more engaged and open to what the presenter has to say. Real quickly, just a couple concepts from the readings for this week. This idea of getting to know the hero. Okay, Nancy Duarte makes a big deal about, she likes to compare the presentation to a journey. She likes to express things in terms of hero going on that journey. The important thing here to know is that you are not the hero. Okay, your audience is. And this isn't just textbook material. Okay, this isn't just stuff that sounds nice because it's in the book or the instructor saying it. It's something I'm going to repeat endlessly. You have to be able to put yourself in your audience's shoes. Okay, they're the ones who are important. It seems a little bit odd because we're working toward a short presentation in which you're going to essentially present yourself to prospective employers. So you might think, but that's all about me. Yes, the content is about you, but the way that you have to present that information has to be done in such a way that would actually impress or move or educate your audience. Okay, and that's a really tough skill to learn, but it's a skill that's important to learn early on because it applies to so many different things. In my English classes, in month 4, I have to tell students all the time, please read your paper from the perspective of someone who is not you, because sometimes there's a certain moment in the paper that just doesn't make sense, because the writer is leaping from one thought to another, and in her mind it makes complete sense, right? Because that's how her brain works. But sometimes we don't see the holes, the gaps, the leaps in logic that occur if we don't put ourselves in another person's shoes. And for this class, creative presentation, being able to imagine, to put yourself in the shoes of a prospective employer. Okay, so imagine that you're a hiring manager and you've got to sit through, I don't know, 25-minute presentations from all these people, all these applicants. What would you want to hear? Hopefully you can put yourself in that position. Okay, because if you're not, chances are things are going to be flawed. Now the good news is we're going to have drafts. You're going to get lots of feedback from me. I'm pretty good at pointing out, for example, I'm getting way ahead of myself, but students sometimes will start off in a draft and it's feeling more like a mini biography than a selective presentation aimed at employers. So I'll have to say things like, would an employer really care about all these albums that you love or these video games that you've played? Probably not, right? So yeah, it's something I'm going to repeat ad nauseum. You're actually going to get sick of me repeating it week after week after week. But yeah, your audience comes first. And that means relating to your audience, figuring out what their needs are so that you can connect with them as powerfully as possible. Okay, I'm going to breeze through some of this stuff because it's just, it's repeating the same thing. Meeting the hero. Okay, the audience is hero, right? Okay, remember that. Audience is king. Audience comes first. And it's not just a textbook concept, it's reality. And that your job really is to act as a sort of mentor. Okay, just as mentors work with mentees to sort of guide them, you're guiding your audience through what you want to take them through. We already talked about journey. Okay, let's get to this week's assignments. I have some of the assignment sheets open. Let's go to the no, that's not the discussion. There's the discussion. Okay. A lot of you I've noticed have already jumped into the discussion. That's awesome. I had a post on the board. I'm going to be jumping into the discussion. I just had a crazy couple of days, but I'll be jumping in and responding to what a lot of you said in real short order. But I did say in my post to make sure that you're always reading through assignment sheets. That's another big one. I mean, keep up with the textbook chapters, but also read assignment sheets. Sometimes what happens is students look at the board and just sort of figure out what's going on. But if one person isn't doing something correctly, then it has a domino effect, and everybody just starts doing the assignment incorrectly. And usually, it would have been solved pretty simply if they just read the assignment sheet. Um, so, on page 2 here, you have instructions, right? Go to the board, share your thoughts and experiences. Make sure that you explore a couple of these prompts. Describe your comfort delivering presentations. Okay, you fearful? Comfortable? Why? Discuss a public speaking experience you remember. Was it good or bad? What did you learn? Discuss the time you created a visual presentation. What was your biggest challenge? Be also sure to share what you would like to learn from the class. What do you think you need to improve upon in your own presentation skills? Okay, so you should be hitting pretty much all these prompts. Okay, if you've never created a visual presentation before, I kind of find that hard to believe. But if you really haven't, okay, maybe you can't discuss that prompt. But you should be able to hit most of these. Okay, so make sure that you're doing so. Then you also have to write at least 2 responses to classmates. And actually, let me get back to the main activities page because I want to bring up. Oh, come on, come on. I want to bring up a rubric that you have that should help you with creating feedback. Again, you're going to make an original post on the board, okay, that addresses those prompts that we just went over. In addition, you have to respond to at least 2 of your classmates. So let me bring up that rubric. Bear with me. Internet is working really slow right now for some reason. Okay, it's this guy here, feedback rise model. Okay, this is about how to give solid feedback to your peers. You should be trying to do 4 things. After you've read another person's post, you should reflect upon it, but not just reflect upon it in your own mind. Some of the words that you actually write in your response should show your reflection. Okay, this is your ability to recall, ponder, communicate. Basically, it's a friendly way of not repeating exactly what another person said, but acknowledging that you understand what someone wrote. Okay, and they give examples. Okay, I relate, I agree, I disagree, I like. Next is to inquire. Okay, which means to seek information or provide ideas by asking questions. And it gives you examples. Have you considered this? When you said X, am I understanding you to mean? Okay, then you can suggest. Okay, introduce ideas for improvement. You might consider doing X or Y. Finally, elevate. This is where we're getting this word, right? Rise. Elevate, rise the discussion to a higher degree, and you get examples of that as well. You have this handout, okay? It's there for every discussion assignment. If you can do this intuitively, that's fine too. I know some of you will come to look at this handout and go, okay, nice pyramid, rise, whatever. I don't care. If you can do it intuitively, I'm okay with that. But what I don't want to see is just people running to the board and writing a single sentence, essentially sort of rubber stamping what someone has taken a lot of time to write. The idea here, the goal here is to engage in conversation, to encourage dialogue. That further conversation or dialogue may or may not occur. I mean, there are going to be students who just post their work, write 2 responses, and never come back to the board. But ideally, hopefully, further discussion will take place. But that's difficult to do if no one's really responding to each other thoughtfully. So, okay, keep that in mind because I think you get as much as, I want to say 30 points for your responses. So you don't want to lose half of those points or maybe even more by just writing like 1 or 2 generic sentences. Looks great or awesome job. Okay. Um, so there's that. That's one of the activities for this week. Okay. It's a discussion activity. It's worth 5%. Okay, so it's a pretty low stakes activity in the sense that you're really just you're being asked to kind of go down memory lane and talk about public speaking, presentations, etc. The main task for this week, though, is this assignment, the 1.4 professional presentation analysis assignment. It's worth 15% and it's due Sunday. Okay, so you have 2 activities here that are going on simultaneously. They're both due Sunday at midnight. And let me go to the instructions for this one. Okay. You're going to watch a minimum of 3 different TED Talks, and you get the website here. Actually, I'm going to go there. We can get away from this one. Okay, usually just TED.com, or if you just do a Google search for TED Talk, it'll be the first result. Okay. You can browse through the talks on your own. You can search by topics, right? So anything related to technology, entertainment, etc. You can try to do a dedicated search. So if you try to do a dedicated search for a celebrity, you're probably going to find out that they haven't delivered a TED Talk. Okay, TED Talks tend to be people who work in tech. Yeah, there might be some musicians in there, but you're not going to get, like, I don't know, Jay-Z delivering a TED Talk. You're not going to get Taylor Swift delivering a TED Talk, or who else do I like? Azalea Banks isn't going to be delivering a TED Talk. Okay, if you do enough searching, maybe there's a name or two that you recognize. But your job is to find 3 TED Talks to analyze. Okay. Make sure that there are actual talks, because I think there are some performances that are buried in there. So choosing someone's, I don't know, some avant-garde musician's 3-minute performance isn't really a talk. Okay. Yeah, Ron made a joke. Ozzy Osbourne TED Talk. I would watch that and see how much of it I could actually understand. TED Talks are interesting. I think they have a limit of about, I want to say, 18 minutes. Like, that's the limit. If you go over 18 minutes, like, you're yanked off stage. It never happens because I think the presenters are very careful. But the idea is that the average presentation runs about 45 minutes, which is a long time. I mean, I'm aware of it too. Like, I try to keep these go-to sessions to an hour at the max, because after an hour, I just lose you guys. Probably after about 30 minutes, I start to lose some of you. So I try to keep things peppy. I try to keep things moving. And there's good reason. If the average presentation time is 45 minutes, that's a whole lot of time to sit through. Okay, so TED Talks are really sort of brilliant because they realized, hey, let's just hit these things quickly. You'll find that most TED Talks are between 10 and 15 minutes, and they're on very dedicated topics. And most of them, by the way, are pretty terrific. I'm a big fan of the TED Talks theory. So your job here is to choose 3, okay, and basically answer the question: what makes a presentation effective, creative, captivating, and/or inspiring? You can choose any TED Talk you want, okay. And then basically you have to consider these questions. Okay, why was the presentation powerful or moving? Why did you like the presentation? Was it just the content, or was it something about the speaker? What made the contents appealing or relatable? How did the speaker draw you in? And you should be able to answer these pretty specifically. Okay. Yes, I know it's asking you to consider these questions, but most students are literally answering these questions. They may not put the question in there and then the answer. They might find a more natural way to answer these questions in paragraph form. But yeah, they're answering these questions, and they're doing so specifically. Okay, and there are other things to consider. Okay, so you have these prompts. Once you've kind of considered these questions, maybe made notes, maybe answered them in full, you move on to the actual creation of what needs to be done. You're going to create a document for this assignment with visual elements, using the questions that we just went over. Okay, these questions. You're going to write a short analysis of each of the TED Talks you watch. So we're talking about 3 TED Talks. So some students screw this up. I get 1 TED Talk from them, and I'm like, great, where are the other 2? Okay, so you need to watch at least 3, and you're going to write an analysis of each one, where basically you'll be running through these questions. Each analysis should include specific examples from the presentation. Okay, so we can point to exact moments, like, oh, it was powerful when so and so did this. Now, I'll get to step 3 in a second, but it says create a document for this assignment with visual elements. This is purposely open-ended. Okay, later on in future weeks, we're going to talk a little bit more about design. And specifically, you have a chapter in Slideology, which is chapter 6, that really kind of is, if you're a newbie to design, if you've never thought about how elements can be placed on a page, that chapter will prove really useful. But for this week, I just want you guys to play around, okay? So when it says create a document with visual elements, you can interpret that pretty much any way that you want. Some students make a PDF. Some students use PowerPoint. Some students just open up Microsoft Word. Okay, in terms of visual elements, probably the easiest way to satisfy that requirement is to add some sort of image. For example, let me just click on a random TED Talk. How the mysterious dark net is going mainstream. That one actually sounds kind of interesting. Is dark net the same as deep web? Can someone help me with that? I'm so out of touch. Uh, okay, but let's say, like, I could take a screenshot. Even though copyright issues are important, TED Talks are meant to be shared, right? They're sort of, as far as I know, I don't think they're copyrighted. So I might take a screenshot here, or maybe I could start running the video and take a screenshot. If you're using a Mac, I believe it's Command Shift 3. I forget what it is if you're using a PC. I think it's just the print screen button, perhaps. But screenshots are a way to satisfy if you would look for images. Another cool tool is you all know how to get Full Sail Connect, right? Once you're on the Connect page, over here you have a link to the library. And once we're on the library homepage, there is this guy, Research Databases. And once we're in the databases, you have this really cool tool called the AP Images Collection. Now, AP stands for Associated Press. Okay, so these are the sorts of images that would appear in news stories when you see things on like CNN or a print paper like the Washington Post or an online edition of one of those journals. Lots of times those photos are AP images. This is useful if you're looking for specific figures, like there's Fidel Castro. But you might find that your TED Talk presenter is a big enough person that they're in here. For example, I watched a TED Talk by Susan Cain. Let's see if she's in here. She might not be. No, she's not coming up. Although I'm getting Matt Cain from the San Francisco Giants. Okay, so AP Images is great if you're looking for something specific, either related to someone who's big enough that they'd be in the news or some newsworthy event. But let's say I do want to capture an image here. Okay, so I'm just going to pick this image. Then you can download the image, okay, by clicking on the download button. And then you can drag it into your documents, okay, whether it's PowerPoint or Microsoft Word, or if you're creating a PDF, or if you want to try out using Prezi or Keynote. Okay, and Microsoft, even something as simple as Microsoft Word has lots of cool like templates that you've probably never opened in your life. There are newsletter templates, there are pamphlet templates, so you can have fun with your document. But if you do take anything from the AP Images section, just make sure to grab this number and have it appear somewhere. So it lets me know that you got it from AP Images, because what we don't want to do is just go to Google and let's do a search for Jay-Z, right? Everybody knows how to do this, right? You get the images. What we don't want to see here at Full Sail is people doing this. Oh, my computer is so slow, right? And going, ooh, I like that photo. Oh, no, I like that photo. Oh, let me take that photo. We don't know if these photos are allowable. Probably most of them aren't. So we don't want to go there. AP Images, there will be 10 million pictures of Jay-Z, okay? That's the place you should go. We don't just go to Google and take things. Another site, and I'm going to go ahead and mention it in the chat. Don't worry, we're getting very, very close to the end of the session. Sierra says she doesn't know how to screenshot. I'm fairly young, but I know almost nothing about technology. That's fine. Maybe your colleagues can help out. I'm assuming you're on a PC. So PC people, can you help out Sierra? I just put an address in the chat box for compfight.com. So let's go there real quickly. Fight.com. This is great when you need like just an all-around generic image. Okay, so you're not really going to find celebrities here. You're not going to find probably too many newsworthy events, but it's great for looking for things like, I don't know, maybe you need an image of a classroom, or maybe you need images of students, or you need images of puppies. Right, and all we have to be careful of here is that to the left here, we have to click on commercial, okay? Because this will ensure. I'm going to copy and paste Ron. He just responded to Sierra in the chat, but because Sierra can't see it, let me go ahead. Don't know if I can. There we go. Sierra, there's what Ron wrote. Okay. But as soon as we click commercial here on compfight.com, anything below the dotted line, everything above the dotted line is just a shill for another site, so never go there. You shouldn't have to pay for anything. Then I can choose for the cutest puppy. Oh, they're all so cute. I don't know which one. How about this guy? And look, some rights reserved. That's what we want. Anything that says all rights reserved, we can't touch. Some rights reserved means we can use it as long as we give credit. And then you can choose your download size. Um, I know this step might seem complicated, but I swear all of you can do it if you if you do use compfight.com. And by the way, I'll repeat this in another week because when it comes to your presentations, you might use images from compfight. This is the full HTML, but that's like a lot of gibberish. But you all know how to recognize a URL. So if you just go in and grab the URL and make sure that that appears next to your image, that tells me where the image comes from. Okay. So that way I don't have to yell at you and say, where does this image come from? I hope you didn't just Google it. Okay. But yeah, for the visual aspect of your document, I just want you to have fun right now. Play around with images, take screenshots, use the AP Images database, use compfight.com. I don't know, use some of the bells and whistles built into PowerPoint. Okay, at this stage, I just want you to get your hands a bit dirty playing with visuals. Okay, so you're creating a document where you're basically going to cover all these questions for each of the 3 TED Talks. And finally, at the end, you're going to create a top 10 list. Okay, now that you've watched all 3 TED Talks, if you had to create a top 10 list of the qualities, techniques, or skills that make presentations inspiring, creative, captivating, or effective, what would those 10 things be? Okay. Some students screw up this stage too. They start listing 10 things for each TED Talk, or they don't answer these questions and just list a top 10 of different qualities. No, this is something that comes at the very end of your document. Okay. So 3 TED Talks, you're basically analyzing the TED Talks using these questions. Make sure that your document has visuals on some level, and make sure that it includes with your sort of top 10 list. Okay. Oh, Waylon also responded. So let me see if I can copy and paste his words into the chat. There you go. That's what Waylon wrote. Okay, questions. Preguntas. What's for the French word for question? I think it's the same, right? Question or something like that. Questions. I know we've covered a lot, some textbook key concepts from the textbook readings. What you need to do for this week, both in terms of the discussion and the first major writing assignment. Any questions at all? If you do, then now's the time to ask them. If you feel completely comfortable with what we've went over, you don't have to stick around, okay? You're allowed to go and enjoy the rest of your evening. And thank you so much for attending. And we're going to do it again next week at the same time. But I'm going to hang out for a few seconds and answer questions. Joshua says, where can we find the download of this class? Do you mean this session? Like the recording of this session? Yes. Yeah, I just need to process it. It takes about, I don't know, 45 minutes or so. And then I just upload it to like YouTube. So what I do is I send out an announcement. So you'll see your envelope icon light up. I don't know. Do students have an envelope icon? I think you do. But you'll see a message from me, okay, that basically got sent out the entire class saying, okay, here's the link for this week's go-to session. Okay, so that's how you'll get the recording. Okay, good. Any other questions? Waylon says, how do I get in contact with you? And Sierra says, I'm fairly lost. How can I email you? Okay. Like I said at the beginning of the session, the easiest way is just to go to your FSO page and send me a message, right? Like I don't know exactly how it looks on the student's end, but don't you see something similar to this? So like if I wanted to send Sierra a message, right? I could just find her name. Again, maybe things look a little bit different on your end, but the process should be pretty similar. Oh, there's Sierra, right? There are other ways to contact me. I have an email address, so I'm going to type that into the chat. Email is fine too. It's just that I get, and I do get emails, but I get far fewer than ever before, just because FSO has its own built-in message system. I mean, emails are fine though, uh, but yeah, they're sort of becoming unnecessary. It's like I used to give out my IM, right, instant message handle, but no students use it anymore. There's we switched to this. You're all new students, but yeah, about a year and a half ago we switched to this FSO platform. It was a little bit old school before that, and now it's much more modern. The old system didn't have an interior way to send messages. You just had to email or instant message your instructor. But now that we have this messaging tool, yeah, I mean almost all communication occurs on the FSO platform. But yeah, if those don't work, and you need more one-to-one time, that's a possibility too. Even if you're not on campus, okay. Uh, Again, I don't see things from your end. I believe you should have an about tab up here, or maybe it looks like a little eye, like an information button. And I believe if you click on that, you should see. hmm, It should include my full contact information. If not, I'll send it out as a message. But there are other possibilities too. Like I've communicated with students via phone, etc. But yeah, if you need to get in touch with me with like a quick question that can be answered in text, it's probably simplest just either send me an email or a message. So does that make sense, people? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.